Hey there everyone, coming to you with another knife review, and this one is on an Enlan. Haven't reviewed Enlan in, oh dear lord, probably literally 5 or 6 years. To be fair, I haven't really made videos about knives consistently in about 4 or 5 years. But I'm going to go ahead and do a review on this Enlan model El-02, and I'm going to show you the packaging first, as I try to do whenever I have it. Pretty simple box. Honestly, they probably use this for a large number of different models and just put the sticker on the side for whichever one it is. But here it is. Mine came in a box branded Enlan. You can also get them in a box branded B. B and Enlan are the same company. And by the way, I've seen 2 or 3 sellers on Amazon selling this exact knife and the El-02B, which I'll talk about in a moment, the differences between the two, with their own branding on it. So you can very likely find this knife under a few different brands, but if you see this design, okay, the overall design of the knife with the axis lock and the hollow ground blade and the G10 handles and this pocket clip, guess what? It is an Enlan El-02, just been rebranded. But overall, basic packaging, has a barcode, more than likely just for the Amazon warehouse that this came from, made in China. And then again, our sticker on the side, El-02. Nothing packaged inside of it, which is a big shame because we have a proprietary pivot screw. And by the way, you can find the tool to adjust this online. Xduct.com has sold it in the past. I believe they still have a few in stock. Last time I was on eBay, they actually there was a seller selling them for about $7. Luckily, I was able to get a pair of very fine needle nose in there and adjust it with that. Kind of just placing the needle nose pliers in and barely turning it. You could probably also use a large variety of other tools to do so, including very thin-headed medical tools. But it is a bit of a shame that it doesn't come with its own adjustable pivot screw, kind of like that Effengrau that I reviewed. Even though it didn't get a super positive review, it did at least come with its own tool to adjust the proprietary hardware that came on the knife. That's something we don't get with the Enlan. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get into the review itself. And we're to start the review by mentioning that this is a copy design. I'm going to do this now to save people from the time from commenting on the video and complaining that it's a stolen design or a copy design. I know that the vast majority of knives coming out from these brands, like Enlan, Sanrenmu, Gonzo, and formerly, before they went under, Navy, will be copying other companies' designs. It's just a thing that does happen. In this case, it's been very incorrectly called a Sabenza copy, thanks to that blade shape. This is actually a copy of an SCK Loxa? L-O-C-H-S-A. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I'm going to say SCK Loxa, which has the same exact blade shape and same exact handle design, albeit that one is a titanium frame lock. This is an axis lock. The Enlan El-06 is functionally the same knife with a liner lock and an upgraded blade steel. So this is a bit of a copy design. Due to the use of the axis lock, by the way, combined with its handle shape, it actually reminds me quite a bit of a Benchmade 730 Aries, which is awesome for me because that's a knife that I actually really wanted to own for a long time and couldn't afford. So this kind of gives me my proxy for it, although it just makes me want to buy the actual Benchmade even more now. Let's move into the blade itself. We have a 3.6-inch long blade made of 8CR 13 MOV. I don't think I need to speak too much about 8CR 13 MOV at this point. But for the newer guys out there, it has decent edge holding, moderate, not outstanding rust resistance, and it's extremely easy to put a hair shaving sharp edge on. It sharpens extremely well and takes a beautiful working edge. That being said, a lot of 8CR 13 MOVs will take a toothier edge if you don't refine them on a much higher grit stone. I have noticed when sharpening a lot of 8CR 13 MOV blades that if I sharpen them and finish them on a 1000 grit, I can sometimes still get a little bit of a tooth in there, and I need to hit it against 3000 grit stones to get it a truly polished and razor's edge. At 1000 grit, you can get it hair shaving sharp, but it won't have the same super smooth cutting edge of an actual AUS 8, which the blade is roughly on par with. 8CR 13 versus AUS 8, functionally identical steels. Okay? Just a bit more of a toothy edge generally produced on the 8CR 13. It is a hollow ground blade, and by the way, this thing slices amazingly. It does extremely well in cardboard cutting, and I did more than a little bit of testing with it. Despite the fact that the spine of the knife might be a tad thick Not super thick, but just a tad thick to be an ideal slicer. It does work extremely well. Blade length, I believe I mentioned, to 3.6 inches long. Definitely a big enough blade to use in a self-defense role, if that's what you're interested in buying this knife for. If you're looking for a tactical knife or a defensive blade, this has the reach you would want to use it in that application. Drop point design overall, again, a copy of that SCK Loxa, somewhat similar to a Sebenza in overall lines, I suppose. And it does have a nice functional tip on it. Okay, you can see it's not a needle sharp tip, but it is definitely capable of penetrating clamshell packaging as well as bubble mailer packages and cardboard boxes. So a very, very functional blade. By the way, we can see the steel stamped on the side there, 8CR 13 MOV. They're being very honest with us. I appreciate that, Enlan. Thank you very much. I wish Effengrau would follow those same restrictions. But I'm not going to get too hung up on that in this review. The knife does come out very fast. Okay, just a minimal thumb pressure needed against that thumb stud. And it comes out like lightning. The thumb stud design itself, I'm not super big on. They do extend far enough past the handle in order to get a decent grip on them. The problem is they're not the most textured thumb stud, they're a bit slick. So I have slid off the thumb stud a couple times in the past. But it comes out fast and locks up solid. No play up and down, no play side to side. It did have a bit of play whenever I received it, which is an issue because, again, here's our pivot screw. And that's not just like a design for the female end. Here's the female side of the screw. This is the male end, or the end that you'll have to actually tighten and adjust. So keep in mind you're either going to have to buy the proper tool for this, if you do end up buying the knife, or you'll have to make do with a different tool that happens to fit. I'll say that I got lucky getting the 3-pronged head screw, because I've seen others who got the kind of star head, okay, as opposed to the 3-pin head. They got the star head. Go reference Cutlery Lover's video on the same exact knife. He has his own review on this knife. Go look at that review to see what I'm talking about. He had the star head screw, and those are significantly harder to adjust without marring them up if you don't have the proper tool. But big downside with that pivot screw being a proprietary tool, because mine did come a little bit loose, and I can guarantee you that these are not Loctited, so they probably will come loose with time. We do have some jimping on the top back of the knife, and the jimping does work, I'd say, moderately well. Doesn't super lock your thumb in, but it does provide a decent grip, and it is cut, oh, there we go, somewhat deeply. Not a super deep cut, but it is functional. By the way, also a relatively clean cut. We don't always see that on knives at this price point coming out of China. Our locking mechanism is an axis type lock. Basically, for all intents and purposes, it is an axis lock. And while not as smooth as a Benchmade axis lock, I can use it to open and close the knife, no problem. That being said, it did not come that way. Alright, it did need to be seriously broken in, and it was extremely stiff whenever I first got it. And by the way, not only was it stiff, but it would actually stick whenever I would deploy the knife with a very hard deployment. If I would really flick this out, like I did just there, I would actually have to really pull down on that to get that lock to disengage. Sometimes I would even have to take 2 hands, press the knife against a hard surface, and pull down, because that lock would stick against the back of the tang of the blade. Now, obviously, with knives at this price point, there's going to be quality control differences between batches, and perhaps I just received one that was a little bit worse than others in that sense. But I do have to note it did stick whenever I first got it. Additionally, the lock itself was very sharp upon arrival. Bring you into closer to see the design here. You may be able to tell that's a little bit more of a sharp cut on the metal. Now, it has been worn down just by use of disengagement with my thumb. Eventually, you know, you will wear it down, but it did certainly tear my thumb up a bit in the process of doing it. But out of box, that was actually extremely unpleasant to disengage the lock. And I can't say that all of them will have that issue, but I can definitely say that mine had that issue. But if you actively engage and disengage it, you'll wear it in and you'll wear that metal down. You'll just unfortunately do so with the skin of your thumb. So it is a bit of a downside. At least the knife locks up solidly, though. Now, this is the El-02. They also have the El-02B, Differences being the EL-02B has a stone-washed blade, whereas this is a satin finish blade, and the EL-02B has a textured G10, whereas you can tell this is a polished G10. Alright, so this is more of a classy looking knife. If you wanted a more functional, grippy knife, or a more tactical knife, you would definitely want to go with the EL-02B. Additionally, the EL-02B's stonewash blade would help with the rust resistance issues that HCR13 has versus the satin finish. But on this version, we have the polished G10. It does not really provide any texture or grip. I'd say it's a very low amount of traction provided by that handle, but it is a good thing to... It's a nice looking knife. I've seen some websites incorrectly list this as blue and black G10. It's not. It is a flat black. Blue and black G10 would be like on this Cornwell Tools CRKT Igniter. Okay, you can see the differences between the G10s on these knives. This is blue and black, this is a flat black. Still attractive, but in my opinion this is much more attractive. I feel like it's a little dishonest for companies to be calling this a blue and black G10. The Standard Moon 962 often had that issue as well. Though some of those were actually blue and black, many of them were just a flat black. Ergonomics, it is a reasonably comfortable knife in hand. I do notice that because of that flare on the pocket clip, I do get a little bit of a hot spot in the palm of my hand during hard use and long-term use, but overall I find it to be ergonomic. That being said, this little raised section in the handle here, this kind of swell, I could definitely see being a problem for someone whose hands did not fall properly on it. You can see my fingers kind of fall right there. So it falls in between my middle finger and my ring finger. But if you have larger fingers, I could see your fingers falling directly on top of that, and you having a much more uncomfortable experience with the knife. Additionally, it does make a hammer grip with this knife less comfortable to use, especially during pull cuts. Shoulders on the knife are a bit squared off, but overall not unergonomic. It does feel moderately comfortable in hand. Not a super ergonomic knife, but not really a super uncomfortable knife either. By the way, you can see we do have full steel liners, and they are skeletonized to save a little bit of weight. And the weight on this is 4.7 ounces. To me, that's perfectly acceptable for how much blade we're getting out of the knife. Moving on to the pocket clip, we can see it's mounted for a right hand tip-up carry only, and that is another negative on this knife. Not only do you have a lack of options for where you can mount that clip, so it's not ambidextrous, poor lefties will be left out with this one, which is a shame, by the way, because with the axis lock and the dual thumb studs, this would have been a super ambidextrous knife otherwise. But nope, only for right hand tip-up, and another issue with the clip was that when I got mine, the tension on it was really, really, really weak. So the natural thing to do would be to take the clip off and bend it. Well, I tried that. And these two screws over here were willing to come out just fine. When I tried to back this one up, and maybe I can show the damage to the screw on the camera here, maybe I can't. You can see how it started stripping a little bit, even though I was using the appropriate sized bit. So it was either pressed in too hard in the factory whenever they were drilling these in, or they managed to Loctite just one screw, and I couldn't get it to come out. So what I had to do was unscrew these two, rotate the pocket clip to where it was facing off the knife, put downward pressure on it, rotate it back, and then re-screw the knife in, the screws in, and now I have a pretty good tight tension on that pocket clip. Flared out a bit more than I'd like to see. I haven't had it catch on anything though. Let's go ahead and show you how it rides. So a bit of handle exposed from the pocket, but honestly not a big deal for me. I prefer a bit to grab onto anyways. And I don't find this to be an obnoxious amount of protrusion from the pocket. You might, however. We do have a lanyard hole, which, like most lanyard holes, looks perhaps just a bit narrow, but I'm sure if you force it through there, you could get your 550 cord through there to make your own lanyard for it. I will say that I am happy they have a cutout back here for the axis lock. It makes the axis lock just a bit easier to reach. There are other knives I've noticed from other companies that perhaps their axis lock is a bit occluded. This one does not have that issue whatsoever. Price on this knife comes in right around $17 or so. I paid $16 for mine, I believe. But I've seen them as high as $23 and as low as $13. And for any of those price tags, it actually is a relatively decent knife. It's certainly worthwhile. It does have its issues. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. But For the money, it is a functional, a larger everyday carry knife or self-defense blade if that's what you're looking for. That being said, I can't say that it's the best in its price range. There are some that you could look at that might be, arguably better, some that are arguably worse, and some that I think are just definitively better than this knife. So let's go ahead and show you one that I think would be an arguably better knife. Here is the Schrade SCH 503 Shorelock. We have an AUS 8 blade on this one. It's flat ground. We have the Shorelock design, which is kind of like a Benchmade roller lock, and a lock back had a baby. So it is a spine locking mechanism, but when you disengage the lock with this little lever here, it disengages that lock back. So because of that, we can kind of do our axis lock type flips with this, just like we could with an axis lock knife. Super solid lockup on this one. A aluminum handle with some rubberized inserts, also fully steel lined, non-skeletonized. Also a right hand tip up carry clip only, but we can see that it has a better angle on the pocket. This is not going to catch things because it's a flat design clip with a raised section on the handle itself and a larger lanyard hole, also more ergonomic in hand, but also significantly heavier. This is 6+ ounces. I think it's 6.4, I said in my review, 6.3. Heavier knife, but a better knife for long-term use in my opinion. Here's one that's kind of funny. Also a Schrade, supposedly. Still can't get a straight answer on this one. The Extreme Survival F24. Benchmade Barrage copy with a significantly lower end steel. On this one, I forget it offhand, but I think it's 7CR13. A SOG Arc Lock copy. Aluminum handle. Two-way positionable clip. Yeah, nope, look at that. Different mounting setup than on this side. So this looks like a Benchmade clip would fit it, but you'd have to get, the clip itself and screws big enough to fit those large drilled holes. Centering is way off. Lockup is worse. There is a bit of up and down in this knife. But it comes in around the same price range, so I feel like showing it off as a competitive option. How about one that is, in my opinion anyways, definitively better? Check this one out. This is the Gonzo. I believe it's the G738. Let's have a look here. If it'll focus in. Yep. G738 440C steel blade will outperform the 8CR13 and does outperform it, by the way, in my own testing. G10 handle textured on this one. They also make it in a wood handle if you're going for a classier looking knife, kind of like this is a classier style material. Two-way positionable right-hand tip-up carry clip with a Benchmade mounting system, but a Spyderco spoon-built clip design. That's interesting. Gonzo's G-Lock, very similar to the Axis Lock, comes out fast, locks up solid. Same price as the Enlan El-02, and in my opinion, this knife is better in pretty much every way. Had no issues with deployment out of box. It is super smooth. Very ergonomic in hand. Can take that clip wherever I want. The jumping actually works. The lock isn't uncomfortable to disengage. This is a better knife in pretty much all categories to the El-02. Does that mean the El-02 is a bad knife? No. It just means I think you can find better if you're only looking to buy one knife. I own it, and clearly I want to continue owning it. I have no plans on selling it. But if you're looking for just a single knife to purchase for everyday carry use, and you're looking for the best for your money, the El-02 will not fit that description. However, if you're looking to add on to an already existing collection and gather unique designs, or I guess semi-unique designs, and cool, affordable blades to build your collection, then the El-02 is certainly a worthwhile consideration, and I do EDC it from time to time. So, that was my review. I hope you guys found it somewhat informative. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, peace, and take care.